someone says cold plunge is obviously not jumping in for 9 seconds and jumping out. So what is it? How often? The temperature you're mentioning. So the one I have, I think the lowest it gets to is 39.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in that, like the various temperatures and where's the benefit start from. So we just talk about the practice. What is the practice of
Yeah,
cold plunge?
absolutely. So when I got into this practice, like I said, I started with the Wim Hof method. And what I discovered very quickly by like my third or fourth ice bath was that that method was not for me, not at the time. I was so sick. I had no energy. I had nothing to give. So this hyperactive holotropic breath work was putting me into a state of anxiety so that by my third or fourth ice bath, I'm standing in front of the tub and I'm frozen. And I just couldn't imagine getting in. I couldn't imagine, first of all, lobbing myself in, dropping myself into the water. And I also couldn't imagine, like, I was in such an activated state. I could not imagine getting into the cold and being more activated. I knew that if I could just get to the other side of it, I was going to feel better. But how do I get there?
So let's explain for those who are not familiar. He's obviously very well known, but Wim Hof, his ice plunge method. So he's always recommending a certain breathing and pattern
Yeah,
before jumping into the water.
it's a hyperactive holotropic breath work. So you can do it like 3 rounds
So
in
he doesn't
about 30
recommend going into the
minutes.
water without that.
Mm, Wim has a lot of different ideas about ways to approach the water. The Wim Hof method specifically is that breath work of for 30 minutes or even 60 minutes. And what that does is that is increasing your blood flow. That is bringing heat to the surface of the skin. That's doing a lot of things to prepare you for what it feels like to be cold.
Got it. So the first number of times you did ice plunge, you always started with the Wim Hof
For
breathing
the
before.
first like three-ish times
Got
that
it.
I did that, I was starting with that. And what I noticed was I was still in that anxious state. And what I noticed was that by meeting the cold with that anxious state, I was enhancing that anxious state. Even though I was seeing benefits, even though good things were happening, by this third or fourth ice bath, I was frozen in a state of anxiety. I couldn't even get in. And that's when I started to draw on my own experience. I'd been in dialectical behavioral therapy, and what I had learned was that if I was in an anxious head state, I had to bring myself into my body. And how to do that was by activating my physical senses. What could I hear, see, smell, taste, and touch? So as I'm standing outside of the ice, I'm thinking of this. I'm like, well, I can feel the sunshine. I can smell my coffee. I can
Mm,
taste my coffee. My feet, I can feel them grounded beneath me. I can hear the birds. And so I'm bringing myself into my body with this intentional state.
right.
And so I also realized I needed to choose this practice. I needed to step in with intention. I needed to sit down by choice, lean back by choice, embrace this discomfort by choice,
As opposed to
as opposed to
not thinking about it, just
competing
jumping in.
against it, as
Yeah.
opposed to meeting it with that, I'm going to do this. I
Right.
had to find a way to surrender in this experience.
Right. So to be kind of more present to it, not I'm just jumping in and
Right,
yes.
right. Not letting it do all the work. Me choosing to participate, to be an active participant. And so this ice bath, I just stepped in, I sat down, I leaned back, I breathed, I got out in the same type of calm manner that I entered it. And that's when I really started to see a shift in my mental, my emotional presence, my empowerment piece, being able to calmly surrender to that fight or flight experience when in freezing cold water. And because I was seeing so many incredible benefits, I started sharing this with anyone who would listen. I'm like, just come to the house. I'll walk you through it. I'll use my technique. You're going to do great. And in this technique that I use for myself, I started introducing other people. By the end of 2019, I realized this is a method. This is a practice. I need to teach other people to do this because I'm not going to be able to guide everyone in the world's first ice bath.
Right. Is it something you can touch on quickly here, or is it better if you refer to maybe a YouTube video or something else where
Check
talk
out
about
my
it?
YouTube videos. There is a playlist for Morozko for deliberate cold exposure meditations on the Morozko Forge YouTube. You can also find my meditations on the Insight Timer app, and you
Cool.
can go to my website, adriennejezick.com, and get access there as well.
So you recommend a meditation leading right into the cold plunge.
Yes.
How long
And
does
so
that take?
the
Approximately?
Morozko method is approximately 5 minutes of a mindful meditation practice. Then you step into the cold with full intention with a guide. So here's the other difference with the Morozko method. You've got someone right there every step of the way helping you through the process. Whether it's one of my certified guides guiding you through in person or on Zoom, or if you're just pressing play on a meditation, I'm right there every step of the way telling you exactly what to do. Also activating those mirror neurons. You see me, I'm in a calm state. There's a slight bit of hypnosis. I am putting you into a state of suggestion through this mindful meditation. And it's helping you meet the cold with calm. The other part of it is that when you step out, you step into the power pose. Familiar with the power pose? We call it Superman pose or Wonder Woman pose, warrior pose.
Right.
And this pose is actually called arms akimbo. So I'm pulling from science and mindfulness and meditation and body language. Joe Navarro, what everybody is saying, is a 20 plus year FBI behavioral analyst, and he talks about the power pose, arms akimbo, and why standing in that pose for 2 minutes create chemicals of calm.
That's one with your
confidence in
legs
the brain.
spread apart, hands above?
Hands out to the sides
Okay.
and feet spread apart. Amy Cuddy does a whole TED talk on it, the power pose and how it impacts our body and impacts our brain.
Oh, you're talking like that kind of pose. Okay.
Yeah. And so when you step out as part of the Morozko method, you do not start working out. You don't go into, big, heavy movement. You're standing still. You're standing still and you're allowing the cold shock proteins to do the work. You're allowing your body to warm itself on your own. You're also teaching yourself how to be still amidst chaos, how to be still amongst the stress response. Typically, when met with stress, we become reactive. What we want to teach, what I teach with the Morozko method in this practice with the cold, is how to become responsive, which is why this impacts everywhere in life that you experience stress.
Right, any stress.
So you could be driving down the road or standing on stage or having a difficult romantic conversation, raising a toddler or a teenager, and you can employ this method. I've spent a lot of time this year working with combat veterans, first responders, and sober living facilities, teaching this method in the cold because of the way that it impacts our lives when we're out of the cold. So as far as best practice, the most common misconception about cold is that if I do 2 minutes and I feel great, then if I do 10 minutes, I'll feel like Superman. And the truth is that this is a minimum effective dose practice, 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 5, if you're on those warmer temperatures. But this is cold concentrate. You do not have to spend a lot of time in the cold to have a drastic impact. And more is not always better. You can experience diminishing returns if you are in the cold water for too long.
So is the diminishing returns with the length of time in the water or even the frequency of it?
Could be both. So anytime that you're struggling to warm up or you get to that point where you've got uncontrollable shivering, it's enough. It's enough.
But in terms of, okay, so 2 minutes would kind of be the minimum of it?
2 minutes for minimum for max health benefits. I find most people find comfort in a practice around 3 to 5 minutes. My sweet spot's about 3.5 as well, as long as I'm at 33 degrees. But if I was in 45 or 55, I'd have to go 10, 15 minutes to get similar benefits. I still don't think they would be quite the same, but similar benefits. So I think that the majority of the benefits, in my belief, come below 37, 38 degrees. You want to activate that fight or flight response in the body, because when you're doing that, you're doing a few different things. All systems in the body are coming online to give you optimum efficiency at surviving whatever this, your body thinks this is. And you're also giving yourself the most benefit for inflammation reduction. And you're teaching yourself a mindful presence of what it's like to be activated in a state of fight or flight and calmly move through that and become responsive rather than reactive.
Got you. So the stuff online that will say anything under 60 degrees is an ice plunge, you disagree with?
I think any amount of cold is a good amount of cold, because if it's making you uncomfortable and you're choosing to sit with that, there's going to be a benefit.
Psychologically,
right. Mentally, emotionally, even physically. If we are uncomfortable in a state of cold and we choose to sit with that, we are teaching ourselves something through that practice. I believe Andrew Huberman says that it has to be below 55 degrees to really get a benefit.
Got it.
Yeah, about 11 minutes a week below 55 degrees.
But that's interesting that you're specifically recommending temperatures that most cold plunge manufacturers don't even touch.
Right. Right. Most cold plunge manufacturers manufacture cold plunges. They have chiller boxes. They sit outside the tub.
Right.
The water runs through. There's a warming process that happens when it goes through that process. Making ice is not easy. Most people have not chosen to go the difficult route that we did. And also,
And making ice is what allows you to get to those temperatures.
making ice allows us to get to those temperatures and allows us to put the body into a state of shock. I like to think of autoimmune as like a dog without a job. So if you don't take your dog out, you give it walks, you give it a job, it's going to destroy your home.